Okay, so I think the problem is with the door lock, not the actual handle itself. But to find out, we need to remove the door panel and check it out. Okay, so to remove the door panel, we need to take off this trim piece here. There's going to be 2 screws, and then there's 2 screws underneath here, I think. So let's get them off, and hopefully the panel will just come right off. So that's 1 screw. Screws underneath. I don't know if you can see, but they actually don't come out. They just twist into a certain position, and then the door panel should be able to slide over it. So I can see here. Then we twist it into position. Okay, so with the 2 plastic screws in position, 1 screw removed here, we're going to try to take off the door panel. Okay, now that the panel has popped off, we need to get the door handle cable off, which just pulls up and unclips like that. Then we have 1 cable going here. The pink tab should just lift up. And the cable comes out. Okay, so now to get to the door lock, we need to remove this black panel, which is held on by these bolts here. I'm not sure yet, but we might have to remove the window. I hope not though. Unfortunately, it looks like we're gonna have to remove the window. And to do that, we need to lower it till we can see the 2 window screws here. So I guess we have to reconnect the panel. Okay, we can see the 2 window screws now. We can disconnect the panel again. Okay, so let's try to remove the 2 window screws. Well, that just broke off. Okay, so let's remove all the screws going around this black panel. Okay, so both the screws to open the window broke. So our only option now is to drill out these rivets that hold the window regulator. We'll be able to remove this panel without removing the window. The only problem is I don't have any pop rivets or a rivet gun to put these back into, so we're gonna have to go back to the shop to get that. But for now, let's just drill these out and get this panel off. Okay, also I think we're gonna have to remove the motor for the window, which is 2 cables and 3 screws. Okay, we have these 3 white plastic clips now. They just press in like this and push in. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna have to remove all these rivets that hold the speaker, because it seems like there is more rivets behind the speaker that hold the window regulator. There is a cable going to the bottom of it. If we push in both of these tabs, it should come out. Okay, so that's where they hid the 2 other screws for the window regulator. Very, very smart. Okay, I can't even remove the wiring loom because it goes in here. To remove it, I need to remove the panel. But to remove the panel, I need to disconnect this. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So it's pretty much free everywhere except this part here. Okay, so I think an easy way to deal with that is shut it off. Okay, now that we got this panel off, we can disconnect the lock cable. And finally, we can remove. Okay, so that's finally off. That was a lot of unnecessary work. Okay, so we got the door card off, the door panel inside. We still have to figure out how to remove the window regulator because as I said, the two screws holding the window broke. So maybe I'm gonna try to remove the lock first so we have a little bit more room. Okay, to remove the lock itself, we have two screws here. Okay, the lock is still not budging, so we're gonna remove the door handle to disconnect the cable going from the outside door handle to the lock itself. This part just comes off like this. To remove the lock cylinder, I'm pretty sure is this screw here. So let's try that. Just above the place where we removed the first screw, there's one more screw here. Okay, so we have the lock cylinder out finally. Okay, so since we removed the cylinder, the lock has been freed. Okay, so here we have it. Okay, so the cable just twists and pulls out. Finally, door lock is free. We can definitely see that it's not clean. So hopefully this dirt was stopping the door from opening. Every other function of this works, so I don't see the reason for replacing it just yet. So we're gonna try to clean it out and put it back in. But we still have to figure out what to do with the window. Okay, so I've took a closer look at the window regulator and I noticed we have damage on the actual window regulator cable itself, the metal cable. I don't know if you can see. It has been making a grinding kind of sound, a metally grinding kind of sound when it's going up and down. So I'm guessing that was the problem there. So I'm just gonna snip the wire to remove this window regulator and just replace it, as it is a common fault on them. So while I'm here, just replace it because I really don't want to have to come back here anytime soon. Okay, so finally the window regulator is out. Yeah, that still leaves us with a problem of getting the window out. Because of the clips that hold the window, I can't get it to fit through here, and also it doesn't fit through here, so I guess that's another challenge we're gonna have to deal with. Okay, so I didn't want it to come to this, but I don't see any other way. Well, that was easy. Second one. Fuck this car. Okay, so that's the window out, the window regulator out, and the lock. We did use a little bit more tools than anticipated, but we finally got all these parts out. So now I'm gonna go get a replacement window regulator, a rivet gun, and then we can start cleaning everything up and putting it back together. Okay, so we're gonna remove the door handle as well to see how bad the rust damage is around the area. So you just pull and it comes out. Okay, there isn't any holes or it hasn't rusted all the way through, thank God. So hopefully we can just sand it down, put some rust converter on it, and then primer it, get it ready for painting. We're still gonna have to remove this inner door handle holder thing, and I think that comes out by this rivet here. So yeah, we're definitely gonna need to buy a rivet gun. Okay, so we're back now. We've just came back and we have a window regulator, some pop rivets, and a rivet gun. That should help us putting everything back together. So what I'm gonna do is clean this lock up, spray grease where grease needs to be sprayed, and then we'll put back the lock, get the window regulator in, the window, and bit by bit start getting everything back to where it should be. Okay, so let's get the lock cleaned up. And what I'll be using is 8120 with a brush. Okay, so that's a little bit better. I mean, it's not super duper clean, but the parts that move, this part here and this part here, were the two most important bits. So the only thing left now is to spray them down with silicone spray. Okay, before we do put the lock back in and start putting everything back together, I do want to address the rust around the door handle. What I'm going to do is try to remove as much rust as I can, put on some rust converter, and then primer over it. And then we can start putting it back together. Okay, so that's a little bit better. I'm going to put some rust converter on it, inside and out. And once it's cured, we'll continue. Okay, so while the rust converter is curing, we can start putting back the window regulator. So I went to the shop again to get the right size rivets, but unfortunately they don't have any. So what I did was get some washers. So I'm going to use the rivets that I already have with these washers. I've already tried it here. It seems to be doing okay, so I'm just gonna go with that. The window regulator and the metal panel riveted together, so that's done, thank God. So now looking at the screws to tighten the window itself, I realized why the ones on R1 broke. It's because they're reverse thread. So yeah, you live and you learn, I guess. Okay, we can get the speaker back on. Okay, so we finally have all the rivets back in, the window regulator, the speaker. I've snipped the safety wire that was here, popped this back in. So now we're gonna move back to the car. The rust converter has done its job. So I'm just gonna sand it down and primer it, and then we can get the door put back together. So this is the inside of the outside door handle, if that makes any sense. So this cable here, when it gets pulled on the bottom, opens, well, when you pull the outside door handle, this cable moves. It moves quite freely, but what I'm going to do is clean it up and spray some silicone on it as well. So everything seems to be moving quite smoothly. Okay, so this piece goes back in first. There's two clips here. So it goes in like that and slides in, and then the screw goes in here. Let's put the screw in. Okay, so the inner part is in. Now we can try to put the door handle back in. Okay, the door handle's back in. We're gonna put the lock back in now. Okay, so let's connect the interior handle cable. Okay, now we're gonna attach the outside door handle. Okay, so that's both the cables back in. Okay, the lock's back in, so let's just give it a quick test to see if it functions. Okay, the inside works perfectly. Okay, now the door is opening from the inside and the outside. Time to get the cylinder back in. Okay, it popped in. So now let's screw it in. Okay, that's tight. We can put the cover back on. So that's it done from the outside. I forgot about this little screw. So let's just put that in before we forget it. Okay, so it's time to fit the most annoying part from this whole thing. Okay, so let's get the wire and loom and the indoor handle cable through this, and then we can screw it down. Okay, so door lock cable in. Now we're gonna just try to slide the window regulator in. Now it's just a matter of plugging everything back where it was. Okay, so that's everything pretty much where it should be. Let's get the window motor on. Okay, so window regulator, motor back in. Let's plug the cables. Okay, now that pretty much everything is back in place, I'm gonna put in 1 or 2 screws to hold it in, and then just test everything out to make sure it works. Okay, everything is connected now. Let's see if the window regulator works. Okay, so the window regulator works. Okay, so I'm gonna put all the screws back now. Okay, finally, time to put the window back in. This time I made sure to screw them the right way. Okay, so the window goes up and down perfectly. Okay, so here goes nothing. Let's try to get the panel back on. Okay, so thank God that is over. Okay, so it works from the outside. Opens and closes quite smoothly. Okay, so everything's put back together now. Everything works, everything's been tested. That was a long and stressful job. I would not recommend anybody taking on this job unless you have a full day to yourself. I guess it was worth it. I can get into my car now and close the door once I'm in the car. So it is what it is. Okay, if you've enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all the other videos we'll be putting out. See you in the next one.